Ant, how you doing? He's got his Flyers jersey on even after the loss last night.
Of course, of course.
I like the retro Phillies look too. It's my era.
I had to with you on the podcast today. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
What's that?
It's a pleasure to have you on.
It's my pleasure. I do quite a bit of podcast. Actually working on working on producing my own podcast because everybody has a podcast. So I'm trying to think about my opportunity to do that, but also working on some mascot reality treatments in Los Angeles. And so I love doing this. I love this format because virtually anybody with some passion and some desire can put together a piece of media that, frankly, I guess the focus is you don't care whether anybody watches it or not. I mean, you do want them to do that, but at the end of the day, you're doing it because you like to do it. And I support that type of spirit. And so I'm doing probably a half a dozen to a dozen podcasts a month, visiting, learning about it, talking with folks that are big Phillies fans or Power of Fun fans. And I love it. So it's my pleasure, and I appreciate you being. For some reason, recently in the last couple of days, my internet has been unstable, which it's been perfect. And just recently, I've had a couple of these glitches, so I hope it doesn't negatively affect us today.
Oh, it's completely fine. It's completely fine. We're just going to introduce you, and then we're going to go straight into it.
Okay, cool. I'm ready.
Today on the Matt and Ant Show, we got the original Phillie fanatic and the creator of Gritty, Dave Raymond.
Yeah.
How you doing, Dave?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm glad we got Ant excited. We're doing great things.
But we want to start off. How did the opportunity to play the Phanatic?
Well, it was not something that as you could imagine, it wasn't something you planned to do. I will say I was living my dream to try to be my hero. I wanted to be my hero. I wanted to be like my hero. I wanted to be a football coach like my hero. I wanted to play football for my hero, who was my dad, Tubby Raymond, and he was a head coach at the University of Delaware. And my earliest memory was all about just trying to grow up and be a good enough athlete to play football at Delaware. I got that opportunity in the mid 70s. Was loving it, and he knew I wanted to be a coach, and he suggested to me that I wouldn't be able to replicate what he did because he was at the University of Delaware, get this, for 50 years. He came to Delaware in 1955. I was born in 1956, and he was the head baseball coach and the backfield coach. About when I was, I guess, 8, 9 years old, he became the head football coach at Delaware and was the head football coach for 36 years. And he was saying, you can't, what's that?
It was still 2001, right?
Yeah. And he was trying to explain to me that football coaching might not look the same way that I learned it. And he said, let me help you get a job with the Phillies, because he knew the Carpenter family. Bob Carpenter Sr. owned the club. Ruly Carpenter was managing the team, was running the team at the time. And I got what was supposed to be a 2-year internship in 76 and 77. And I didn't graduate until 79. So I thought at the end of 77, I was convinced, by the way, that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, was work for the Phillies. I couldn't imagine you'd actually have a job to do that. And in 78, thinking they were going to call me and say, graduate, come see us when you graduate from Delaware, maybe we'll have something for you. Instead, they said, listen, can you come back this summer and work? And I'm like, yeah. And they said, but you have to stay for all the games. I'm like, that was a perk. I did that anyway. Not only did I get into the games for free, I could go sit anywhere I wanted. I could sit up there with Harry Callis. I could sit behind the dugout with the ground crew. I could sit up in the 700 level, whatever I wanted to do. So I'm like, sure. And then they said, we're going to pay you to stay for the games. I'm like, oh my God, what do you want me to do? And they said very quickly, we need you to go to New York and get fitted for the costume. I'm like, wait, I just go to New York and get fitted for the costume, Dave. These are the same fans, this, famously booed Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. And so I'm about to come out as a giant green furry Muppet. And that's how it all started. Bill Giles told me, go have fun. And then I went running out of his office because I was excited. I was a college kid. I was getting paid to have fun. And then he yelled at me, G-rated fun. So I knew I had a box to work inside of.
Yeah.
And they let me do it. They let me do whatever I wanted to do as long as it was appropriate. And that's how the Phanatic's personality was created. Over the next number of months, I figured out that the Phanatic was a combination of the heartbeat of the Philadelphia fan, which I had that heartbeat. And then all my favorite Three Stooges, silent movies, cartoon characters all mashed up. And that's what now continues to be the Phanatic's personality today, 43 years later.
It's crazy. What was your favorite moment of all the years as a Phanatic? Like, what was your favorite moment from them? Because you were there for 16 years as a Phanatic?
Yeah, from 78 until the end of 93 when Joe Carter ripped out our hearts. And
so you're there for the World Series, that World Series run.
Yeah, that was when I knew, I was pretty sure I was going to retire after that year because I had made some plans to start my own business. But I would put it in two categories, Matt. There were the really wonderful moments that were obviously actually very difficult to experience. So dealing with kids and folks that had very, very severe challenges, including life-threatening illnesses, that I was asked as the Phanatic to go visit these people. And then seeing how just a visit by the Phanatic in those moments brightened their day. I could talk for 3 straight days about each one of those moments. On the fan side, on the wonderful part of my job side, besides doing great things, it was the 1980 World Series parade, where I stood on the back of a flatbed as the Phanatic at the very end of the parade. So they had seen all of the players, all of the families, all of the players' families, all of the executives with the trophy, everybody excited. And then the very last flatbed was the Phanatic all by himself on that flatbed. And the reason why I was there by myself was that Mr. Giles wanted me up front with the players and their families. And I said, Mr. Giles, this costume has never smelled worse, because I'd been so busy. We did not have multiple costumes at the time. And I just didn't have a chance to clean it. We didn't really understand how to clean it well. Mm-hmm. And I said, the families, they're going to hate it. It's going to be like someone had dropped a stink bomb in the middle of their flatbed. So he took one of the flatbeds that was supposed to be there as a backup in case another flatbed had broken down before the start of the parade. And he just put me as the Phanatic all by myself. And I got to see the sea of people, the wake of people, because we were all going down Broad Street to go have a celebration at JFK Stadium, which is, Roosevelt Park now. There was nothing ever like that. Nothing will ever be like that again. All respect to the Eagles parade and, and the parades that hopefully will be happening after this. It was the first time that the Phillies had ever won a world championship, and there was nothing like it. And they had 100,000 people come from all the way down Broad Street to fill JFK Stadium to celebrate this wonderful world championship.
That's insane.
And yeah, I'm in your career. I have a moment in your life and in your life, in your career.
So a moment in my life, in my career.
A moment that impacted you.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. I mean, and that's a great question, and because I can try to, I'll try to contain my emotions. It is the most wonderful thing about this job it has put me in this point in my life to be able to talk about, specifically in today's world, to talk about how important fun is as a tool for us to not only overcome challenges in our lives, but also build this long-term sustainable happiness. So it all started way back. I used to get asked, and still get asked many, many times by media, to talk about mascots. And then one of the questions always is, why are mascots so powerful? Why do they work so well? And when I, probably, I don't know, 30 years ago, when I was first asked that question, 35 years ago, I didn't really have an answer. I said, oh, well, everybody likes a cartoon character. And, and I would pass it off as just, oh, it's a cartoon character. Well, then why do people love cartoon characters? Why are they? Well, the essence of it is that a mascot, and specifically a great mascot like Gritty or like the Phanatic, they have an ability to immediately connect with you and your kids and your family on an emotional level by just showing up, working hard, doing it well, but you show up, you are connecting on an emotional level. From a business standpoint, if you are in sales or marketing, if you can connect on an emotional level, like Apple has always done, people are not only going to be customers, but they are going to be family. They're going to be evangelists for your brand. On a level of just social relationships, if you can really move somebody emotionally, they are going to be a friend of yours forever. So the culmination of my understanding was they do that seamlessly because they're distracting us with a fun moment. So when I was going into a hospital room to visit a family where a young child, anywhere from the age of 5 to 12, was suffering from a disease that was going to take their lives, that was clear to everybody in the room. Yet when the Phanatic would show up, there'd be joy in that room. There'd be high fives, there'd be hugs, there'd be photographs, and then the parents would be patting me on the back as the Phanatic with tears in their eyes saying, we haven't had a good day in weeks, thank you. And I'm thinking, I just showed up. Mm-hmm. So all of the work I've done since 93 has been trying to figure out how I can formulate a theory or a process. And that's the power of fun. And that's what I speak about now. I'm a keynote speaker. I wrote a book called The Power of Fun. And my audiences are coming back to tell me how much it means to them, which is wonderful because all of us performers have a negative critic that's in our ear going, you're making this up. You're not, this doesn't mean anything. You're wasting your time. You're wasting their time. You don't know what you're doing. It's all fake. And that's the truth. You talk to any performer and they will tell you that. And so when the audience comes back and validates what you're saying, and then the science of positive psychology that's only been around since the mid 80s, all validates what I learned on the fly. That's all come together since the pandemic because I've had a chance to study it. I've had a chance to develop my content, and I'm talking to people virtually like this. I just talked to Bellarmine University, their whole athletic department. So 47 coaches and staff were on a call, and I was talking about how you can use fun each day to help to connect people on an emotional level. And leaders and coaches love that. So this is my passion. So I'm sorry for going on so long, Ant, but you struck a nerve. I mean, that has shaped my entire life. It's tried to make me, I'm trying to make a better version of myself, outside of the personality that I created as the Phanatic, and really live and breathe this as a human being. And it's been a wonderful travel. It actually saved my life. I've dealt with some really difficult times in my life after living an idyllic life, and this theory, this process has really helped me overcome.
Would that be, the impact you had on kids? Do you ever think about maybe doing a cartoon or a TV show?
Yeah, I mean, have I ever thought about doing that type of work, a TV show or I think the things that I we talked in the pre-show about me trying to do a podcast, but what I really want to do, I think it's wonderful, and I've been asked dozens and dozens of times to create a reality treatment about mascots, and just recently we've actually hit on something that I can't talk a great deal about, but it's going to be digging into the heart of performers and why they do what they do, and have them compete to be able to get a wonderful prize at the end of this kind of a docu competition series that surrounds the world of mascots, but also is talking about, powerful fun. So I have thought about it. I have great relationships in Los Angeles who graduated from the University of Delaware, who have the ability to make this type of show a success. And we're almost ready to start pitching the show. So it's a timely question. And I hope that will move people to be more connected to my message about fun is too. That's, the motive about developing that is really to get people to hear the message more. So I appreciate the question, and I'm trying to do just that.
We can't wait to see that show. So when you retired in '93 as the Phanatic, did you have any idea you wanted to continue in some form with mascots?
Well, yeah, because my concept was, one of the things I did as the Phanatic that was surprised to me that it was successful. I started because the Phanatic was, if you look at what happened to Gritty, the exact same thing happened to the Phanatic. However, it took about 3 years to run the course of what Gritty went through in 3 months.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about the Phanatic. It was a sensation inside of the world of baseball. It started crossing over into being asked to be on the Gong Show and all of the shows of the day. I made appearances on those shows, and the Phanatic was very well known. And when one of the things I did was I went to Philly's minor league affiliates, and that would make sense. I'm going as the Phanatic to perform at a Phillies minor league game. Well, in minor league baseball, what I discovered early was they don't care about wins and losses as much as they care about people coming to the ballpark and enjoying it and buying tickets and spending money on merchandise and concessions. So other teams that were outside of the Phillies minor league started asking for the Phanatic to come entertain their fans. And I didn't get it because I wasn't understanding the business yet. So then I started traveling all over the country to many minor league baseball franchises that were not Phillies affiliated teams. So they were American League affiliations, and everybody just wanted entertainment. So my concept was, the only negative about me being the Phanatic all those years was I didn't own the rights to the character, which was the Phillies took good character that I owned. Well, wait for 1 second. The old internet instability. Anyway, so my concept was to create my own character, and go to all those minor league teams with a piece of entertainment that they would invest in for a one-night performance. And we were successful. I had partners. The same people that designed and made the Phanatic were my partners. We created a character called Sport. And for the next 8 years, I traveled all over the country. And not only did I work at baseball games, but minor league hockey, soccer, rugby. I did virtually any minor league team that was out there. And we were trying to make him popular from a grassroots standpoint so we could create a children's television product. That part of it never worked out. We had tremendous grassroots support. We were never able to produce a children's television product that was valuable. So I ended up taking over that business, and moving in 2000, I created Raymond Entertainment, and our job was to create character brands for sports teams, colleges, universities, and corporations. And I've been doing that ever since. And I've also, on a secondary track, have created the speaking business where I'm a keynote speaker. And I'm traveling all over the country and talking to groups both in business, in the health industry, because my message is about being healthier and happier. So at DaveRaymondSpeaks.com, the thing I'd love, if anybody's watching this that is interested, to go to DaveRaymondSpeaks.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter, monthly newsletter about how you can build long-term sustainable happiness. That's at zero cost. every Friday night at 5:30 on my Facebook page. So you just find David Raymond on Facebook. I do 15 minutes of priming your brain for positive focus for the weekend. Love to have you guys join that. I do it right here in my COVID studio.
Yeah, too.
And then so only 15 minutes. And then also my book is for sale on that same website. If anybody wants to jump in a little bit deeper, that tells the whole story of how I started the Phanatic and the great stories of the Phanatic and how those taught me about powerful fun and how to apply it to being happier and building sustainable happiness. So, and Raymond Entertainment, RaymondEG.com, RaymondEntertainmentGroup.com is my mascot business. So it's a difficult time right now for business, but I'm connecting to people virtually and getting engaged to do that. And I'm also building a couple of new character brands right now as we speak. So I'm blessed. It's not easy, but it's been fun to figure out a way to do it creatively.
That's awesome.
Do you see that company going beyond it doing mascot or maybe doing hat or t-shirt or something like that?
Yeah, well, so in terms, can I hire Ant? Is he available to hire? A marketing guy. He's already talked about television. He's talked about, now he's talking about merchandise. I mean, dude, come on. No.
He secretly wants to be your business.
Yeah. Well, so this pin, here, I'll give you a little, this shows you how fun and how amazing. So this is a magnetic pin. So it doesn't poke into your, and the exclamation mark, if you see it, it's green fur. So can you see the green, fur?
Yeah.
So that's an ode to the big green guy, right? Part of my struggle in marketing myself as a speaker is this is what I used to do. Very important because it's the whole foundation of my message. But this is what I'm doing now. And my brand of the power of fun has this exclamation mark on it. So we made these pins. We found it, and what the clients do is they'll buy my book and pins as part of an immersive experience in powerful fun. They give out the books. But the pins, the books people tell me they love it. I tell them, sit down in a bathroom. Over the course of 3 days, you'll be able to read the whole book. You're wasting time in that bathroom. You might as well make it valuable. But the pins, people, like, we did this as a little bit of a lark. And of course, Ant is right on top of this. Like, you should merchandise to help deliver the message. So we are doing that. And I obviously can't, the Phillies have been very kind to let me use my backstory and use images. And I have approval from Major League Baseball, actually, because of my TEDx talk. So if anybody wants to hear about what the Power of Fun's about, I have a TEDx talk that you can go see. You just do Dave Raymond TEDx talk, it pops up. I had to get approval from Major League Baseball to show all the images of Phanatic, which anybody who's worked with Major League Baseball, they've got a lot of lawyers that are protecting their IP. They gave me an exclusive release into perpetuity because of that TEDx talk. So I appreciate Major League Baseball recognizing the positive effects of my message, and the greater good was worthy of them giving me something that's very hard to get. So I get some of the benefit of, this is who I was, this is what I did, and this is what I learned. And you can be a part of it too. So I give these pins out. We don't sell them. We give them out if they listen to our keynote, or if they do something, they send me a note and say, I did this, I helped out here, I'm practicing this. We send them a pin. So we kind of make it exclusive. Like, you can't buy this on my website. You can buy the book. We do give you a pin if you ask me to sign my book, and they have committed to reading the book and spreading the message. So you can get this for free if you buy the book and have me sign it for you. So I love Ant. I mean, it was and by the way, you should tell all your viewers that Ant did not have that sent to him to ask that question.
He's been plotting that question for a long time, wanting to ask that.
You're a good man.
You say your message about fun. And what is fun to you?
I think so here's fun to me. Everybody, if I were to say fun to you, let me see. I'll ask Matt this question. If I said fun to you, what's the very first image or thought that pops into your head?
Being with Aunt.
Great. Okay. Good. So you've compartmentalized it in an experience to work with Aunt, right? Okay. So that's fun to you. In that form, everybody can come up with an image or an idea of what fun means, and most likely it's about friendship and experience, vacation, time off, having a couple adult beverages. In my kids who are in college, flip cup, beer pong. That everybody understands that, right? So now if I take the word fun and I put it over here and say, hey, this can save your life. Well, you're going to have to explain that to me. How can fun save my life? So this is what they call the consensus. People understand fun. They all get it. The problem with being in that consensus is they don't value it as a really important tool to save your life. And then I would go on to explain what the process is. And it's about you being in charge of your happiness. And you have a DNA set point that has been given to you at birth. And you're either Eeyore or you're Tigger or somewhere in between. Your DNA set point decides that's your level of happiness. But the Power of Fun process teaches you that you can actually overcome your DNA and push your happiness set point up, pull it above where your set point is. That set point will always remain the same. So you'll have a tendency, no matter what, if you don't work at it, you'll go down to your set point. So let's say you're Eeyore. I can push you all the way up closer to Tigger if you follow my process. If you're Tigger, I can push you beyond even Tigger, where you're a black belt in the Power of Fun. So that's what it means to me. It is a tool that we don't value, like the Force in. Are you guys Star Wars nerds like me?
A little bit.
Well, the concept in Star Wars is that the Jedis are the only ones that have this ability to tap into this force that allows them to do the things they do. However, that force is available to anybody. The series lets you know that it's the Jedi who've made it into like the Zen Buddhism. They've figured it out, but it's there for anybody to tap into. They just have to work at it. So that's the same thing with fun. Fun is a force that is not valued. It's understood as, hey, it's a good time. Let's enjoy a vacation. I'm with my buddy Aunt. Cool. But what about using it every day to make yourself overcome the challenges that we're in today, to build resilience so that you can overcome future challenges more quickly? That's really what it means to me, because I used to just sit in the consensus like everybody else. I had the greatest life in the world up until I was, 33, 34. And with nothing ever going wrong. I mean, I aged myself when I said I was living Leave It to Beaver life, but that's truly what my life was. I go to college, I live my dreams, and suddenly I get this job laid in my lap. I jumped on it. I took advantage of the opportunity, had a chance to develop this personality that is continuing to entertain millions of fans, but nothing bad happened in my life. And then boom, life comes up and goes, boom, and then what do you do? And I struggled with that, and I had an idea of what I was going to do, and that wouldn't have been a good idea. And the Phanatic's personality rescued me during that time. And then I realized, wait, why is that happening? And that, from about 34 years old on, I started to try to figure out what was going on. And it was the Power of Fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you mentioned that you got to meet a lot of kids out through your career. Is there a favorite moment that you heard, or a letter you may have got that thank you for what you've done?
So you're saying about a defining moment when I moved into the Power of Fun? Is that what you meant, Ant?
I mean,
he's basically saying, like, you went to a lot of hospitals and helped a lot of sick kids feel happier. Is there anyone that stood out from that?
Well, yeah, there was, because most of us in our lives, we lack some perspective. I think how many times in your life you said, whatever you're talking about, you said, this is just the worst. This is the worst. And then somebody will come up and say, no, it's not the worst. Have you seen this going on? Or have you heard about this? And then you realize that it's never the worst. It always could be worse. So I was sitting in the Phanatic van right outside of, remember when the Market Street Mall first opened up in Philadelphia? It was really a big thing, bringing a lot of business to Market Street. That ended up being Market Street Live they were really trying to build that part of the city up. So it was about a week or so before Christmas, very busy time personally, and certainly as the Phanatic, making dozens and dozens of appearances. And I had just made an appearance by the Salvation Army bell ringer. So I was accosting people. Oh, wait, we got to wait till my internet is saying it's unstable. So I really apologize. Okay. So anyway, so I was having fun doing that. But then I was taking a break in my van, and when the Phanatic's personality disappears, mine reemerges. And mine is, I'm so busy. It's Christmas time. I'd rather be home with my family. I'm tired of doing this. I want a break. And I'm in the van. Now, the van is completely painted with the Phanatic all over the van. So people are always knocking on the van because they know the Phanatic's in there. And never do I respond because you can't open the door and have people see you without your costume on.
Yeah.
So out of the blue, there's a knock on my door, and I'm used to that. And I'm like, the first thought was, well, I can't open it. And then it knocked again. It wasn't a bang. It was just a knock. And I went, I don't know why, but I opened the door. And there's this young guy, probably in his mid to late 20s. And he said, can I talk to you? And I'm like, and I'm thinking, no, you can't talk to me. You can't. And I said, sure, come on in. He comes into the van. I shut the door. He sits down. I'm like on a toilet. The costume's around my ankles. And it doesn't smell very good. So I'm just like sitting there. And he said, I'm really embarrassed to be here. And the first thing I said was, no, don't be embarrassed. There's a lot of people that are Phanatic fans. What do you want me to sign? And he said, no. I'm embarrassed because I left the hospital. I left my wife with my son in the hospital because I couldn't take it. He just got out of brain surgery. He has a brain tumor, and he hasn't responded the way the doctors had hoped he would respond. And both my wife and I are devastated because we're hearing that he should be okay, but there's also a chance that he's not going to be okay. And it's been over 24 hours and he just hasn't responded. And he said, I saw you here coming around. I came around the corner and I saw you get in the van. And I thought, oh my gosh, my son loves the Phanatic. And he was about, I think, 15 to 16 years old. Loves the Phanatic. He's been a huge Phanatic fan ever since he was a kid. He's grown up with it. I'm thinking maybe if you were to come up there with me, and it was right around the corner at Jefferson Hospital. Said maybe you could come up. Well, I can't do that. I can't just walk into a hospital as a Phanatic without approval. I can't go to a hotel or to a hospital room without with the doctors giving the approval. You just can't do that. And I'm sitting there thinking, just minutes earlier, I was whining and complaining in my brain about how bad my life was. And I went, yeah, let's go do it. So I put the costume on. We got out of the van. Now, I hadn't finished my appearance, by the way. And as I'm walking away, the person that's organizing whoa, where are you going? I'll be right back. We just walked right around the corner, went into the lobby of the Jefferson Hospital, up the steps. But, everybody's waving hi, and down the hallway, walked into the room where you see the wife sitting down in the chair, and she just pops up and goes, oh my gosh, it's a Phanatic. And the husband says, yeah, honey, I found him on the street. So he said, come up. So I walk in, and there's the son sitting there with a lot of IVs and I'm telling you, it's this. He pops up from the waist up, goes, hey, it's the Phanatic, just like that. And then the mom drops down to her knees and starts to sob and cry. The father comes over and high fives his son. The doctors come in like, what the hell's going on? And I'm like, I'm in the costume going, oh my God. And they're going and checking on him, and the kid is laughing. And I'm there for maybe 3 minutes. Take some photographs. The mother's hugging me. She's crying. The father said, hey, go back to your day job. And we left. And the kid turned out it was a benign tumor. He recovered fully. I never saw the family again. And in those days, there weren't texts or emails. So I didn't receive a letter from them. Not that I needed it or expected it. It was pretty normal because I was doing a lot of those things like that. But this was all driven by some other force, because I was doing everything I'd learned that I wasn't allowed to do. It's much worse today. That never would have happened. I'd have been stopped at the door. They would have said, wait a minute, what are you doing here? But in that world, I could overcome those challenges just because it was the Phanatic. So that was my most memorable time. Now, I will tell you that sort of thing happened at least weekly, that type of engagement, and continues today. So I left in 93. So from 94 until 2020, so think of the millions of people that the Phanatic has affected with that type of engagement. And it goes well beyond. So when people say, what do we need mascots for? Or Major League Baseball says we're cutting mascots out of the rollout of the end of Major League Baseball with no fans. What do we need them for? It's, they just don't get what happens. That, you need to follow a great mascot like Gritty and go do one of his appearances, or the Phanatic doing one of his appearances at a hospital, or just at a community or some family you would never hear about or never hear about. And they walk in and do that type of work by just showing up. It's pretty amazing.
And so how did the Gritty opportunity arise for you?
Well, because we're in this business, there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Heller, who now works for the Philadelphia Visitors and Convention Bureaus as their president in charge of marketing. He was running, he was kind of like, he was the Bill Giles of, that part of the Flyers, and his boss, Sean Tilger, was kind of the new guard. Ever since Mr. Schneider passed away, this was the culmination of a number of years later where they had kind of built a new young staff. And they decided, Joe Heller tells the story that he was at the point that he decided we are no longer not going to have a mascot was when he saw the plane land with the Eagles after they won the Super Bowl. And at the airport, every other team in the city had their mascot there. And that's when he said, we can't miss this opportunity to connect anymore. He called me and said, I'm not sure when we're going to do this, but we want you to guide us through the process so that we are successful. And about a year after that phone call was when they started. And the reason the simple reason why Gritty worked, simple but hard to do, was it was a full collaboration. I was able to tell them what I felt they must do to be successful. They were able to take that process and customize it to fit how they marketed and sold and what their vision was. And I've always said from the very beginning, they say, you're the expert. What should it be? What should it look like? And I go, no. That's not what we do. We ask you enough questions so you figure out what it should look like and what it should be. And that's exactly what happened, all the way to the point where we were designing. My company also, we do everything, design, we get it built, we find performers, and we, more importantly, tell people the process. But in this particular case, we had done a bunch of designs, and we had created the design that looked like a bull, B-U-L-L, because as a quiet, subtle ode to the Broad Street Bullies, which they were happy about. And that bull was big and hulking, and he had hockey sticks instead of horns, and probably 2/3 of the committee that was making the decision on the design liked it. But Sean Tilger did not. And he kept saying, I want it to be uglier. I want it to be scarier. I don't want kids to hug them. They can high five them, but I want them to be a little bit intimidated, which was counterintuitive to what you're trying to do with a mascot. And finally, because we weren't having success, they brought in Brian from Flyland Designs. And when he put a series of his drawings down, now imagine, I've got an ego. Probably only 1% of the time with our clients have our designs not worked.
Yeah.
And here I was with my ego being tweaked, and I saw the designs and went, that's great. I'm in. And the Flyers did that on their end too a couple of times. So the egos were tossed out. It was about getting them what they truly felt would work. And then I was teaching them about what they need to do, but more importantly, what not to do. Don't leak it out. Don't tease it. Just roll it out. That's our guy. We don't care what you think. Let them be as negative as they want, which we all knew. I told them from the beginning, they're going to hate it. They're going to universally hate it. And they're going to be yelling and screaming at you how bad it is and how stupid you are and why are you ruining this? And sure enough, that all came. But they were like, we don't care. They can say whatever they want. As a matter of fact, when they start saying something that's bad but it's funny, we're going to share it, which is what they did. And Gritty was a complete success because Raymond Entertainment and the Flyers collaborated to get done what they wanted it to be. And that's not our job. Our job is to help them. So as far as I'm concerned, we were very successful because our process got the Flyers to where they wanted to be, not what we thought was going to be good. Because, we're just like anybody else. Hey, I like that, but you may not like it. It's got to be the Flyers character with the Flyers backstory. And they did all of those things that we talked to them about doing. And then they just were fearless in its rollout. And that's why that fearlessness and belief in what they did was right, and it was theirs, and they didn't do it for any other reason but for them and, of course, their fans. And it was going to work eventually, and that fearlessness is what got it to the heights that that nobody expected it, least of all us. We thought it'd be successful, but I had no idea he'd be, used as a rallying point for Antifa. I mean, my God, they had Gritty strangling Trump at some violent rally. Hey, whatever, it's hockey to us. You guys want to have some fun with it, fine, but that's not our message. So that helped.
The Flyers didn't have a mascot 2 years ago.
Say again?
It's crazy to think they didn't have a mascot 2 years ago. Gritty feels like he's been here forever, but he's only been here for 2 years.
And that is, here's a little secret. I do not want to jinx this, so I'm wiping away the jinxing. But I know the performer very well because I helped identify. I knew that this guy should be the performer when we first started, and fortunately we got him in this position. Wonderful young guy, very amazingly talented, fits well with the organization. And a year or about 8 months after Gritty had gone through all this craziness and he was so powerful and doing so well, and the kid obviously was like I was. It's the parallel between what he went through and what I went through are just so similar. So we can talk shop and be really right on point. So I said, listen, I don't want to shake you up, but let's take a look at the Phanatic's history. So he was born in 1978. 2 years later, the Phillies won their first world championship ever. So here we are, 2 years away from his growth. And I'm going, who knows? So, last night was I think last night was typical of a 3-1 game where, the Canadians and their passion kind of pushed them over the hump there. I still believe they'll move on. And then, I got my fingers crossed. There's enough kismet to make it possible, right? So.
Absolutely. I'm just going to go on and say the Flyers are winning the Stanley Cup just because of that.
All right. Well, you counteracted the jinx by doing that.
Absolutely. 2 years, it's happening. I don't think anything that can affect it.
The reason why I think I was thinking about this last night when they went up 2-1. I thought I honestly didn't believe they were going to win last night. So when they went up 2-1, I went, I just think that this is not in the cards. But I remember, Karen is the female broadcaster for them. And she was talking about the reason why they've done so well, according to the players, is that they like each other.
Yeah.
And if you look at 93, that's the whole thing that drove that team's success. They love being around each other. Matter of fact, they'd stay in that locker room well after games, even though their wives were upset about them not coming out to the car on time. And they just hung out in that locker room because they loved being there. They love that camaraderie, and they love that group. And I honestly think that is what they have now that they haven't had. And it absolutely, with talent, can be the last piece of a puzzle to win a championship. Because if they don't like each other and they're very talented, some of those teams have and can win championships, but it just doesn't have the same rhythm to it. And you can tell those guys really enjoy playing together. And the coach, he's a pretty phenomenal guy. And so we'll see, all kinds of things can happen, but they do have a goalie standing on his head, as they say. And, that's the last time the Flyers won all those championships, or the two championships instead when I was in college. That was all because of Perron. I mean, it just no one could get the puck past him. So, Carter Hart is showing that he's got that type of capability. So we'll see. He just has to continue to be hot and get past a game where I guess last night there was one soft goal, maybe two.
Yeah, but I feel like the Canadians just they knew they had to win. And a lot of teams know that, but they don't play like that. And the Canadians in the series have been good when they need to do that, but the Flyers have responded once already with 2 shutouts.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the Canadians' DNA. But talent, I think, wins out over that. And the Flyers certainly, I think, have a little bit more talent. And so I'll look forward to seeing Game 6. That's when everybody said they thought, the people that were picking the Flyers were saying 6 games. So we'll see. I still think that, all you do is you get past this series and, and then you just have got to work harder.
Would that mean, as a kid, do you have a favorite player?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, hold on a second. All right, so my favorite player was Tug Mcgraw, and I had a lot of visiting players. Joe Sambito, 77, and 76. Believe it or not, Eddie Wade and I interned together. Says my internet is.
Start that over. The internet broke up a little bit.
Yeah, I know. I get a little warning after it already happens. So. This is, by the way, for everybody out there, this is because of the storms we've had recently. My internet is always really good, but so I'm aware of it.
It happens to us too.
Yeah. So anyway, in 76, I interned with Eddie Wade, and he was a former baseball player, and I played baseball all through high school. And so I was a pitcher, and I was left-handed. And so we would go out and shag fly balls. So I had met Tug Mcgraw because one of my jobs was to go into the clubhouse and get autographs on certain pieces of memorabilia that the promotions office was using. And so I got to know him, just says hello, and he didn't know much about me. So he knew who I was. So I'm out there shagging fly balls, and I'm throwing in with my left hand. He goes, "Oh!" And he loved to shag balls. He did all kinds of tricks. He could catch balls behind his back. So he said, "Hey, you're left-handed. You didn't tell me that." And I said, "Well, it didn't come up." He said, "Did you play baseball?" And I said, "Yeah, I was a pitcher." Because you're left-handed pitcher. He goes, "Can you throw a curveball?" And because I couldn't break a plane of glass, but I had a great curveball. So I go, "Yeah, my dad taught me how to throw a curveball." So he gets down in a catcher's position and he goes, "Throw me your curveball." And I just went, "Fruit," and he goes, "Zoop." He goes, "That's a major league curveball." Now, let's be clear. I know mine wasn't a major league curveball, but Tug Mcgraw said it was. So that started a long-term relationship with Tug. I got to know him, Phyllis and Carrie and Mark. And, of course, he wasn't with Phyllis for his entire marriage. Got to know his other wife and their kids. And I was always a fan of his. And he lived right around the corner from me and he died of the exact same brain cancer that took my mom at the age of 59. So we had so many things in common, good and bad. So in 1980, I traveled with the team, and I was sat on the dugout. So I worked pregame against the against the Astros, and then I went to do it with the Royals, and the Royals didn't want me to work, so I had gone on the trip. So on both the Houston series, greatest National League Division Championship series in the history of baseball, I sat in the dugout like I was a bat boy watching all of that. Same thing in Kansas City. And if you watch the 5th game in Kansas City, Tug comes in, pitches for 2 innings with a 1-run lead. Actually, 3 innings for a 1-run lead. He was a reliever. Again, today's world, you don't do that. Through 3 innings of scoreless baseball, kept the 1-run lead, and we went on to win it in Game 6. Well, one of the last batters that he faced was Jose Cardinal. And he threw Jose Cardinal a screwball, which he fouled off, which almost impossible. He fouled off towards our dugout, and I caught the ball. And this is the 1980 World Series ball that I caught in Kansas City. And so you also, if you ever watch the replay of the end of that game, I come out on the field and I'm hugging Tug Mcgraw with the rest of the players at the end of that game. So he and I were the best of friends. He was a complete and utter Looney Tune, by the way. He was just crazy, left-handed crazy, but he loved left-handers. I got this ball. I also believe I have the last ball from the 1980 World Series. That's a whole nother story, but I have that up there. And this was the first year that Major League Baseball identified these as World Series balls. So that's why it says World Series 1980 on it. And this is mudded up, so you can see the dirt on it. That's the mud that they actually put on the ball before the game. So that proves that this was in play. And I have another one that looks the same that he actually autographed to my mother. He became friendly with my mom. And he wrote it as a New Year's gift for 1981. And it's a mudded up World Series ball. And his family has told me they've never found any World Series balls from 1980 in any of his belongings. And Bob Boone says specifically, I gave him the last ball. He had it. And I remember giving it to him because as I'm giving it to him, I'm thinking, why am I giving this to Tugger? Because this isn't stuff he cares about. He'll take that last World Series ball and toss it. And gave that ball to him knowing she was giving him the ball and not telling anybody he did.
That's crazy.
He was my guy. He'll always be my guy. And there were a lot of good players and good friends that went through the Phillies, including the Wheeze kids in '93. I was as old, if not older than them. Darren Dalton came to we're back up. I really apologize, guys. I'm sorry.
Don't even worry about it. One of the last things we want to talk about, you created the Mascot Hall of Fame.
There it is.
What inspired you to do that, and where is it located?
Well, what inspired us was the fact that in Milwaukee, if you remember, in 2003, the sausage races that they have, Randall Simon, who was playing for the Pirates and was at Miller Park, when the sausages ran past the visiting dugout, he whacked one of them over the head with a bat. He wasn't trying to be mean. He was trying to be funny. Randall was one of those guys. That sausage fell and wiped out the sausages, and it became a huge national story. And so one of my good friends who worked for me, who ended up becoming a partner in my business, Chris Bruce, came to me that week and said, all this talk about violence against mascots, we should organize a march for mascot rights in the city of Philadelphia. All kinds of media attention. So the next year we did it again. We had about 100 mascots. And then the third year was when we decided to, why don't we create a Mascot Hall of Fame and actually do these live inductions? So from 2005 to about 2010, we did live induction ceremonies in Philadelphia. Then we started going to the character that was inducted into the Hall of Fame. We deserved this type of honor. And we just had the city of Whiting, Indiana in 2015-14, decided to call us and say, hey, we think we want to build it here, because they were re-energizing their downtown. They were a city that had the Pierogi Fest, which was a fun, silly, a weekend event. a few 100,000 people would come to this small town, and that was the start of it. And we rolled it out. Unfortunately, it's not open now because of COVID, but we opened it up in December 3 years ago. This December it'll be 3 years. It's been wonderful. We teach kids STEAM, the principles of STEM and STEAM, through teaching them how mascots are created, how they're designed and built, and the good work that they do. So Whiting, Indiana is just south of Chicago, or I should say southeast of Chicago, right on the Lake Michigan waterfront. And it's a wonderful place to go. It's easy to get to from Chicago, and anybody that's traveling that part of the country should absolutely make a pilgrimage and take a look at that facility. You go to mascothallofame.com and read all about it, read all the Hall of Famers. We've got from all of the sports teams, and we are recognizing the characters, the actual characters, not the performers. We're recognizing, the characters. So it's been a wonderful thing. So thankful of Mayor Stahora and the city of Whiting for having the real energy and courage behind opening this place up. So it's going to be there for a long time.
Yeah, I had to say, and I don't want to speak on that, but I feel like I know you forever. I feel like, you know, I feel like I know you for years now. You're a really good interview.
We're absolutely honored to have you on today.
Well, I was going to say the same thing, and so I just want you to know something that I think personally you'll get. When I first got the job as the Phanatic, I was living in a small apartment outside of the Newark, Delaware campus.
Yeah.
His name was Brian Fields.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So I found this house to rent, small house to rent. I ended up buying it and owning it for all the years I was with the Phillies. I lived in that small house. It was very easy to get to the stadium from there. It was owned before I bought it, and when I was renting it, there was a gentleman by the name of Brian Fields. And Brian Fields lived at the Mary Campbell Center, which is an assisted living facility, right? And they're still there. I got to know a lot of the residents. And Brian was severely restricted by cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
He communicated much more difficultly than you communicate, and you do a great job with it. But as I got to know Brian, you could, like Matt, I could understand Brian, where people were going, who's that? He would drive a car. He had a little ball on his steering wheel, and he was like this. He had difficulty because of the condition to do, and he couldn't walk, so he was in a wheelchair. He would drive that car, pull up to our house, ask us how we're doing, and I learned so much about cerebral palsy, and that it doesn't affect somebody's mental condition at all. He was as bright as a person could be. And it has a tendency to make people who aren't familiar with it to not understand that. So when I saw who you were and I watched some of your podcast, I was just so excited to tell you how inspiring you are. And I know you don't feel that way because you've adapted. You're dealing with your issue. But it's very inspiring to see somebody like Brian and to see you out there just ignoring this as any sort of handicap or challenge and doing great things. So it is one of the reasons why I'm honored to be on the show. I love Matt too, but I just really appreciate what you're doing. And if you can get people to understand what your situation is and has nothing to do with your mind, and that you're productive and you're happy. I think getting to know Brian was such a wonderful time for me. He passed away about 6 or 7 years ago, or years after I bought the place in Wilmington. So just kudos to you, and thank you for doing this work and getting people to see that they can be a whole and complete person no matter what.
I really appreciate you saying that, because that my goal as a guy with CP, I don't want to be looked at as a guy with it. I want to be looked at a person, a real, and you get it. And
Yes, yes.
really, I can deeply say that, and that means a lot to me.
And that's been our goal of the podcast too. Like, we don't label him at all. We haven't once till this podcast said he had CP.
Well, but the only reason why I brought it up is because I wanted him to know how connected I am to what he works on and struggles with every day. And believe me, Brian was my landlord, so we would get in some heated conversations about certain things, and then I really couldn't understand him, and he would, he's like going like this. So I realized that CP did nothing to stop his personality from coming into the fold. So it was wonderful, and I just wanted to make sure before we left today to express my personal connection and Brian. I mean, Brian was the one who got me my first home, and the home where my son, who's 31 years old now, was born. And it meant so much to me during that time. It was a very little small home, a brick home, all that I needed, and Brian was the reason why I think I lived such a comfortable, fun life, was in part because of knowing Brian. And I bought that house, and I still have the deed. $81,000 I bought that house in. I guess it was 1980, 81. I think 1981 I bought it. $81,000. And it's still there. It's a beautiful little house, and so all because of Brian.
You on.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it so much, Joe.
Everything you've done, Phanatic, Gritty, and the things you do in the future.
And before we go, I hope one day we get to meet in person.
Yeah, I'm up for that, man. We'll do it. We got to go to a game. Let's
definitely.
They let people back in those stadiums. We'll go have some fun there. So, well, I appreciate it, all that you do. I'll promote this on my social media when you guys have it up on YouTube, and just please know, stop by my Facebook Live 5:30. I think you'll enjoy it.
We will.
Go to the website, get on the newsletter. I'd love. We're growing a community, and that's what I really want to do. So
what's the name of your book again, and where can you get it? You said
it's at DaveRaymondSpeaks.com.
Okay.
If you Google search it, you'll see it up on Google Books, and but I've chosen to just make it exclusively on my site to purchase it, because people can get it if they want. They can get it autographed, and there's a want to use it. But I'm very proud of the book. It's a good book, and I mean that you could put it. Here we go. Time out.
We were just gonna say, could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. Just buy the book, go into your bathroom, put it on the back of the toilet, and in 3 days you'll be done. And it is truly the way I wrote it, as an easy read, but you'll love the stories, and the message is really important.
Awesome. So go get that book, go to his Facebook page and watch his 15-minute speeches every Friday, and his TED Talk. It's on YouTube, right?
Well, if you just search Dave Raymond TEDx, it'll pop up first.
All right, awesome.
Before we go, do you want to leave up with anything?
No, I think you guys, this has been a lot of fun for me. It's broken up my day. It has been distracting fun for me to talk like this with you. You know, Ant, you made my day. When somebody says, I can't do this, oh my God, this is the worst, I'm going to say, I want you to go watch his podcast. I want you to watch Matt and Ant, and then you come back from there and tell me that you can't do things. So
you know, that means a lot. I mean, it means a lot to me that you understand where I'm coming